Will Nomadland steal the show as it's being predicted to? Has the Academy Sound of Metal's buzz forced the judges to listen and vote accordingly? Or maybe Promising Young Woman's bloody and provocative statements will be impossible to ignore? Hi, I'm Clive, and you're watching OSSA Movies. Here's everything you need to know about this year's Best Picture nominees. Minari. There are so many great movies about pursuing the American dream, but they're often told from the perspectives of Americans. From The Social Network to The Irishman, some of these movies have also been Oscar contenders in the past. But Minari is a refreshing addition to this trend as it doesn't revolve around lawsuits and violence. It's a simple slice-of-life story about a Korean-American family that acquires a farm and tries to make ends meet. When reality sets in, however, they realize that the romantic notion of the American dream might be a fantasy. But that doesn't mean it's worth giving up the pursuit of happiness. Inspired by his own childhood, Lee Isaac-Chung's film is a warm yet realistic depiction of sturdy human beings surviving in tough times. It might be too conventional compared to some of the other nominees up for this year's Best Picture gong, but don't rule out its chances either. As we'll discuss later, stories about human resilience and the pursuit of the American dream are a common theme among this year's Best Picture contenders. If that's what the Academy members are into at the moment, Minari stands as good a chance as any. It's also clear that raw and honest human stories are a big thing this year, which brings us to Sound of Metal. What is it about movies about drummers being so hard-hitting? Besides the fact that drums are literally the most hard-hitting instrument of them all anyway. Remember when Whiplash gained all the accolades for its story about the lengths one player and his teacher are willing to go to while striving for perfection? It wasn't a pleasant experience by any means, but it was a powerful one, and so is Sound of Metal. While Sound of Metal's story is emotional and tragic at times, it's more hopeful than anything. In this one, a talented heavy metal drummer must readjust to life after he's diagnosed with a hearing disability. While he is offered an implant surgery that could bring back a portion of his hearing, the cusp of the movie is about living with an impairment and getting on with things. Sound of Metal could have easily been an overly sentimental work about a man with a disability he wants to overcome. What makes it even better is that the film doesn't view deafness as something that needs to be fixed. In addition to boasting the best sound design of this year's nominees, not to mention a chart-topping performance by Riz Ahmed in the leading role, Sound of Metal gives us plenty of reasons to be optimistic about how disability is depicted in films moving forward. Sound of Metal must be considered as a strong favorite to win this year's award. Just go look at all the best movies of 2020 lists if you don't believe me. Of course, the Oscars also loves a good biopic, and this year's contender in that category is a strong one: Mank. David Fincher movies are no strangers to awards buzz, but it's weird to think that none of them has won the Best Picture prize. Many film fans and critics believe that his output is consistently awesome, so Mank going home with this year's trophy could finally break that losing curse. Of course, it also doesn't hurt that Mank is a great movie about one of the most infamous Hollywood screenwriting scandals in history. If you've seen the movie, then you know how the titular screenwriter was behind the creation of Citizen Kane. Yet, he never received the same recognition as Orson Welles. Mank also stands out from the other nominees due to its stunning black and white visuals, which make it feel reminiscent of a genuine movie from yesteryear. This type of bold visual storytelling might be too hard for the Academy to resist. That was certainly the case when The Artist won Best Picture for the way in which it celebrated the filmmaking of Hollywood's past. However, while Mank has been praised for its old-school sensibilities, some of the nominees have been celebrated for their bright and bold color palettes. Promising Young Woman. Watching Emerald Fennell's debut feature for the first time, it's hard not to feel awe-inspired by its bubblegum pop, neon-drenched visual style. In fact, it could easily be mistaken for an episode of Barbie Life in the Dream House if it weren't for the dark subject matter. While making the movie, Fennell made a playlist for the cast and crew that included songs by Charli XCX and Paris Hilton, just to give them an idea of the mood she was going for. The story, on the other hand, is like something you'd find in a horror exploitation movie. In the movie, Carey Mulligan plays a medical school dropout whose favorite pastime is hunting down male predators who take advantage of vulnerable women. But Promising Young Woman isn't some anti-male movie by any means. The vengeful protagonist takes aim at both sexes if they've been complicit or active in the abuse of women. While the movie tackles some serious issues in a bold and aggressive way, it's also an extremely funny exercise in pitch-black comedy, which might not sit too well with some viewers considering the topic of sexual assault is deeply disturbing. Promising Young Woman might be too edgy to win Best Picture, but if it does, the Oscars will surely stop being accused of predictability. It'd be great to see a movie about a promising young woman win the award, but it faces stiff competition from a film about a declining, aging man. The Father. Growing old is tough, and at some point in our lives, we just have to accept that the people who raised us will start to deteriorate as they advance through their twilight years. Sorry for darkening the mood there, but that's the story of The Father, starring Anthony Hopkins as the titular father. The movie follows him as he loses touch with reality because of dementia, all the while refusing help from his daughter. The story is told from his perspective as well, which only adds to the heartbreaking experience. The Father is utterly haunting as it's an all-too-real reminder of how disease can completely change people we care about, making them unrecognizable. While The Father isn't the bookmaker's favorite to win Best Picture, it won't be surprising to see Anthony Hopkins or Olivia Colman pick up an acting award. Then again, these types of personal stories can never be ruled out, so let's call The Father a dark horse contender. Of course, when it comes to movies with a personal flavor, it's tough to compete with autobiographical features, especially when they're as awesome as Judas and the Black Messiah. Historical dramas about America's troubled history with race relations will always be important, especially when they focus on those who lost their lives in the pursuit of a more equal future. Judas and the Black Messiah is based on the real-life true story of an FBI informant who infiltrated the Chicago chapter of the Black Panther Party in the 1960s. However, as the agent grows closer to the leader, he has to reckon with the pressures of his day job and his newfound attachment to the activist group. Shaka King's explosive feature examines current socio-political issues through a historical lens, without using the same old generic tropes that biopics often employ. This is more of a political statement than a basic dramatization of past events, and its gut-wrenching conclusion has so much relevance to the modern era that it's hard to ignore. Judas and the Black Messiah is arguably the best movie of this year's bunch, though it's thematically similar to another great flick with similar ideas, The Trial of the Chicago 7. When it comes to projects that tackle complex political themes and real-life history, Aaron Sorkin is a straight-up master. The creator of The West Wing is one of the most acclaimed talents of his generation. Therefore, it's hardly surprising that his dramatization of one of the racially charged court cases in American history is up for the Best Picture accolade. The movie follows the eponymous Chicago 7, a group of civil rights activists who were arrested for protesting at the 1968 Democratic National Convention. Judas and the Black Messiah deals with race issues more effectively, but Sorkin's film is a powerful statement in its own right. Furthermore, the Chicago 7 were an entertaining bunch who sassed up the racist judge, which gives the movie a lot of moments of humor and brevity. The fact that it's so funny and topical certainly won't harm its chances of success. Between this and Judas and the Black Messiah, historical dramas are well represented at this year's event. And while their examinations of serious topics could see either cross the finish line, the next movie is arguably the most 2021 movie of them all, Nomadland. Now, I'm not encouraging you to waste your hard-earned bucks on gambling, but if you insist on placing a bet on a movie to win Best Picture this year, Nomadland could see you make that bank. Kerching! Chloe Zhao's American road epic already swept the Golden Globes major categories, and the reaction to the movie has been universally positive. When you look at the evidence available thus far, Nomadland is the favorite to win, and deservedly so. But what is it about Nomadland that's really struck a chord with everyone in recent months? While the film's story is set in 2011, few films in recent memory feel as culturally important or in the now. It's a story about people looking out for each other following a global crisis that's left them houseless and trying to find work. Given that the pandemic has changed life as we know it, mostly for the worse, Nomadland has struck a chord with real people in that regard. The movie also examines a marginalized corner of American culture that deserves more recognition. Some people think that not having a regular income or permanent place to call home makes you a victim. Nomadland says that notion is utter codswallop. The nomadic lifestyle is one of self-determination, strength, and having a sense of adventure. Oftentimes, they take bad situations and turn them into good ones. In that sense, Nomadland is an inspirational story, albeit one that doesn't gloss over life's tougher aspects. It also doesn't hurt that the film is anchored by a phenomenal performance from the always great Frances McDormand and boasts some of the finest cinematography you're ever likely to see. It's a technical masterwork that contains a raw and profoundly human story at its core. How do you even compete with that? Nomadland is certainly our #1 prediction to win Best Picture. Chloe Zhao's films have all received heaps of critical acclaim, but Nomadland feels like the next level movie that will cement her as one of the best directors working today. But now, it's time to hear from you. Which movie do you think will win Best Picture? Leave your answer in the comments below. And while you're here, be sure to check out our Nomadland review.